I report to you from a rainy spring day. Welcome to the lunation situation. We are talking about a very spring sign, Taurus, new moon, occurring April 27th, occurring at 1930 GMT. What is this Taurus new moon about? It takes place at 7 degrees and 47 minutes in the sign of Taurus. So if you have any placements, any planets around 7 degrees of Taurus, but also 7 degrees of Leo or 7 degrees of Aquarius and even 7 degrees of Scorpio, this lunation is impactful for you. And if you're a little bit more advanced in astrology, I advise you to also look at the progressed sun and the progressed moon to see if, this affects you personally. A new moon is always a fresh moment, the birth of a new lunation journey that is the birth of at least 6 months. The fresh incoming energy is like, well, what do you want to do with it? It's a portal that you can use to create, to co-create, to manifest, to wish, to, whatever ritual you would like to do. And of course, it's cosmic. So if you have something around these points in the fixed signs around 7 degrees, then, you, no matter what you do, will feel this freshness of a start, of a new chapter, of a new beginning. And, of course, that's paired with excitement and opportunities. The lovely thing about astrology is awareness, right? Awareness is really important because that's when you don't lose opportunities, you see the possibilities, and you can step in with more consciousness, with more awareness, with more understanding and presence, really. You can see what's coming in and see what's right for you. What is the sign Taurus about? Taurus is the bull, first earth sign. So it's very connected to the natural rhythms. It's about embodiment, being in the body. It's about your 5 senses, your bodily senses. It's about your bodily needs, sensuality, the desire in life to have pleasure and to seek pleasure. And so therefore it also usually loves food and, of course, intimacy or just luxury and good feeling, good textures of, stuff. Because it's the first earth sign, it's very materialistic generally. So it's very much about finances, possessions, what you own, what you can touch, what you can carry with you. It's the material, physical aspect of life, but it's also literally physical, right? Your physical vessel and also your physical survival. So food is not just pleasure; it's also, of course, necessary to survive, and therefore, being the first earth sign, and being about security and safety as well. This is also the moment of survival, the things you need for survival and what is essential really in your life, what is absolutely important. That's what Taurus represents. And because generally in the world, I think we find finances so important, this is also why probably, it has become such a Taurian theme, finance. If you would maybe find something else more important, perhaps that could even change. Such as love, because actually it's Venus ruled. So it's not just about finances and feeling good and pleasure and comfort. It's also about partnerships, relationships, and pairing up, really, right? And that's also, of course, what you need for intimacy generally. Because it's also an earth sign, it's also about preservation, conservatism, holding on. It's also a fixed sign, which enhances these qualities. So it's about holding on. It is about status quo. It's about working hard and keeping what you have, maintaining the standard of living you have or would like to have. It's also very determined. It holds on to the bitter end, and that makes it the hard worker. It works until it achieves what it wants and doesn't stop. So it's very tenacious. Taurus is the second sign of the zodiac, of course. So it's also the second house, right? Finances, possessions, income, incoming. It's also about what values, what you find important, what's worthy, mainly materialistically, but also worthy in, you know, other senses, right? What is important and crucial for your survival, for your beingness, for your body, and, well, survival, to live. It can be basic and simple and practical as an earth sign, but it can also be where you thrive, where you can cultivate and create, enrich your life regarding worth and worthy things. It's where you can make your aspirations tangible and real. Even though it's hardworking, the Taurus sign can make it feel effortless because there is a relaxedness to this sign and really values the calm. But actually don't let that be fooled for laziness. It's not. But it does have the calmness in the sense of patience, which is why it's so enduring, right? Why it can be that tenacious energy. And, you know, the second sign, the second house can also be your talent and your treasures. You know, what are your treasures and what would you like to treasure or have? So I think we have a clear understanding of what Taurus is. Now let's look in the chart because that's a little difficult. Right away we have a really big red triangle, right, which is a T-square. So a new moon is, of course, where the sun and the moon are in the sky together. It's why we don't see the moon. It's in the womb, right? It's in the gestation period of being born, but not yet. So right after a new moon is where the birth takes place, right? So up until the time of the lunation, you're not in, strictly speaking, not in the new moon period. Any rituals, any real tangible activations will occur more likely after the time of the lunation, which in this case is 1930 in the evening GMT. So what 6 months are we birthing here? Well, it seems to be a bit complex because it is both squaring Mars as well as Pluto. So here we have a fixed T-square and it's pretty strong in degree. Mars is, of course, in a way in opposition to Venus because it's the masculine side of life, right? So it's more destructive. It's less understanding and more selfish, right? It's more egotistic for its own gains. And Pluto is sort of quadruples the Mars energy and is way more destructive. Both are potentially explosive energies and very demanding energies. And a T-square is a very demanding geometrical pattern in astrology. So there are a lot of demands on this new moon fresh energy. Now, these three being fixed signs, it means that the energy is very stubborn. We're not ready to bulge. We are at a standstill because we have to have it our way. It's like the putting your, cat nails in and holding on to dear life to the status quo of what is known, very highly attached to that, while change is adamant because Aquarius is involved as being the ruler of the Pluto situation. So we have three directions that are holding on to dear life of their own little way of doing everything. So who's going to bulge? You know, there seems to be a bit of a collapsing energy, like something has to cave, something has to give in. But, you know, this is not what Mars and Pluto are about. They don't like that. It's light to say that this is a very intense energy. And because the moon, of course, this is a lunation, which means that it's collective energy. It's inescapable. It's like a blanket covering, you know, the air, the weather space. And so we will all feel it. Because of this intensity and pressure that the T-square is creating, it can feel like a full moon. That there's a lot of, well, it can feel like a lot of weight. And it can feel like a lot is going on, a lot of demands, a lot of uncomfortability, a lot of confrontations. Now, Mars is a potentially, well, not potentially, really kind of an aggressive energy. And so it can lead into arguments, frustrations, easily escalated situations. Mars is in Leo, so very fiery, so easily also, you know, things being expressed that can hurt, and very demanding people or situations that want their leadership instead of what you want, your needs and desires. That's a big conflictuous situation where I think you should maybe be careful in traffic, be careful with irritated people, and just a lot of hostility, right? And then on the other side, you have Pluto in Aquarius, which is representing a large amount of people, big groups, tribes, demanding innovation, big, fast changes that Pluto demands, as well as showing really dark aspects of humanity and of what has been affecting a lot of people already, but we weren't aware of it. So it's why I say it has like that full moon energy to this new moon, oddly, where things will come to light from the dark and from the ugly that we don't really want to face. And it's going to trigger some of these sort of more denser qualities / negative qualities of Taurus, which is, you know, the safety security aspect. It's going to affect our comfort. We're not going to feel comfortable because Taurus is about holding on and preserving and kind of, right? About maintaining a certain lifestyle, really. It seems that that's under a lot of pressure. So there's some problems with maintaining a certain way of being, doing, having. The usual qualities of Taurus of being able to be calm and relaxed seems also affected. This is where the bull can be triggered and can also become pretty, you know, seeing the red flag and become pretty aggressive himself or herself. So I think we are easily angered, and that can be easily escalated. So it's definitely a moment where you want to be careful. Why? Because Uranus is at the Algol degree. I talked about that in my other lunation because I said that at the end of April, which is where we're at with this lunation, you know, April 27th, Uranus is going to enter to 26 degrees of Taurus point, which means he meets Algol. Algol is a fixed star, and it's a whole mythological backstory to it, but I have a very in-depth video which is linked below in the description. So if you have something about around 26 degrees of Taurus or 26 degrees of the other fixed signs, right, Leo, Scorpio, or Aquarius, you are personally involved with the Algol story, and you should definitely look at it. And if this is like resonating to you, you could also look at where Medusa, the asteroid, is in your chart. So, well, it's about Medusa. It's about the decapitated head of a Medusa that Algol represents. And it's held by the hero Perseus in his hand. So it's a decapitated head of a beautiful lady. And she was killed, well, for that you will have to watch the other video. But she was killed, she was murdered. And so, unfortunately, the Algol placement in astrology is one of the most difficult placements. 26 degrees of Taurus currently. Even fixed stars change signs, okay, or 1 degree every 70 years. But currently it's at 26 degrees of Taurus. So, just like the picture in the constellation, it can be about murder, about manipulation, about assault, physical assault. I think moreover in Taurus, because Taurus is about the neck and the throat and like thyroid and the vocal cords and all of that. This is what is being even stronger attacked by the Algol placement. It's what the Algol placements rules anyway. So we want to be mindful about the neck area. This is at not the strongest. We want to take care of our neck area because she was a lady and she was potentially assaulted herself. There's a possibility of a rape situation as well as, of course, a murder, even though, you know, it's arguably, we can argue if it was for the good or the bad, because there's a whole, of course, mythological story to the entire situation of this, even Perseus himself, the hero. So it's all involved and really, really important, but it's too much to explain in this video. What other aspects is Venus, the ruler of the situation, making? She is also, quite importantly, conjunct, right, together with Neptune. And Neptune has just entered Aries, right? A new era that's signing off 165 years of complete new storyline. And because Neptune is about heightened consciousness and the divinity aspect of life, it's a huge impact, because it's going to change our soul story even. So while Neptune is challenging in itself already us to a new way of doing, new way of being, complete new, well, era, personally and collectively. This is where huge new beginnings come to be in your life. Venus is at 28 degrees. Still, you know, pretty tricky, because the entail of Pisces is where removal takes place, where the end is near. So this is about rounding up, completions, removals, the end of the end. And this is where Venus is at. So while Neptune, that she's conjunct with, is starting a whole fresh new storyline, she herself is wrapping up a lot of the old. So there is a huge ending theme to anything Venusian, which is the Taurus lunation, which is finances, which is potentially relationships, which is how you see yourself, which is even about the feminine storyline, even that, how women were treated and seen, even that is completely ending and therefore changing. A new start to being a woman even. At the one end, Venus, is processing everything that's ending. And so there are a lot of emotions involved. There's a lot of grief, potential for a little bit of depression, very deep feelings, sadness, but also just divine insights and wanting to be close to anything spiritual or divinely based, wanting to see yourself from that perspective of divinity, wanting to reach higher consciousness and presence. I have mentioned this before, I'm doing it again, the presence process, which is excellent for both the Piscean journey, which is, highly triggered at the beginning of 2025, as well as the whole Aries journey, which is triggered with right now Neptune entering, as well as Saturn entering, in from this lunation on in a month's time, in May. So, and of course we just had the last eclipse was in Aries, so we are invited to a whole new beginning, a whole new way of being, which requires a whole new identity and new behavior and new goals, which is why I think that Mars was in a retrograde, which is the ruler of Aries, for such a long time. And he's still not over his post-shadow period, by the way. So speaking of the eclipse in Aries, which occurred March 29th, it was a solar eclipse, which enhances the beginning energy of Aries, a huge momentum at 9 degrees of Aries, which actually just a day before this lunation, April 26th, is where Mercury hits that eclipse point after having been retrograde during the eclipses. So it's very interesting that both Venus, which rules this lunation, as well as Mercury, have been going retrograde between two eclipse points, right? We had a March 14th eclipse, near the end of Virgo, which is the opposition of Pisces, where both Venus and Mercury traveled back to, in their retrograde, approximately 24 degrees of Pisces, and then also went, so started their retrograde at the last eclipse point at 9 degrees of Aries, and then they both went back to the previous, or in opposition to the previous lunar eclipse, March 14th, approximately 24 degrees of Pisces, right? And now Mercury has moved again over that whole area, and now is back to where it started, basically. So both retrogrades of Venus and Mercury started at the last eclipse point, and now Mercury is at it, in this lunation, basically. And Venus is going to go to this point as well, of course. First, she's going to enter Aries, 3 days after this lunation, April 30th. And then May 13th, she herself is going to hit the eclipse point, which is also where she started her retrograde. It means that there is a trigger situation because of Mercury here, of that last eclipse. And also it's interesting that it's the first new moon after the last solar eclipse. So it's stepping up into the new era theme. And now it takes the Taurian aspect into account, which is finances and security and worth. And so we have to really ask what is truly important and essential to survive and thrive. And we're being really challenged by that. So there is there's a leadership issue because Mars is in Leo. There is financial issues because it's in Taurus. There's a safety and security issue because of this whole T square. And we're really being challenged with that. Slightly even more enhanced because Mars is conjunct the asteroid Pandora. You may have heard of the Pandora's box story where, you know, she has these horrible things in her, well, vault, and innocently opens the vault and all these disastrous things come out. And that's where Mars is at, in opposition to Pluto. These planets are the most destructive, most difficult planets in astrology. Like I said, it's a full moon energy to this new moon where something is being exposed. Some really deep treasures, which may not appear to be treasures, can come out of that Pandora's box and really challenge us with many different subjects, but mainly the financial, the security, and the physical side of things, the physical material side of things. But because Pandora is in Leo, conjunct Mars, this could also be expositions about leaders, about male figures, bosses, those in charge, the CEOs perhaps, potentially even the royals, anywhere. Well, of course, this is also a background to a long-standing opposition between Mars and Pluto, which starts actually very strongly April 22nd until April 28th, a day after this lunation. That's the strongest, and then it's going to wane, right? It's going to, the difficulty, the pressure of the opposition is going to become less. Meaning that between April 22nd until April 28th, you have to be, I would strongly advise you to be careful. Careful with people and careful that things do not escalate. And like I said, careful with traffic, careful maybe even in, you know, in situations where there are a lot of people around, and because of the Pluto in Aquarius, and also finances. Yeah. Think about the tangible things you can hold in your hand. Venus is also in opposition to the South Node in Virgo, which means there is, like I said, there is something ending to that storyline. And there is, Venus needs to release the feminine or the financial. Venusian aspect needs to release something, needs to detoxify, needs to let go. I would say let go of force, let go of control, let go of, like, you know, trying to improve every situation, and like control through organization and strategy. This is where you let go and you surrender. What Venus is also doing is she is making that opposition between Mars and Pluto easier, because she's sextiling Pluto, Venus, and Venus is also trining Mars. So she's really helping that very strong opposition of these potentially nefarious masculine destructive energies. Maybe it's the spiritual element that helps. Maybe knowing that, you know, it isn't about the tangible physical aspect of life. There's more, and so you can hold on, you can let go of the control, of the fixation that both Mars and Pluto in the fixed signs have. So just let go. Let go of the control, let go of the holding on. That's what Venus is trying to help in this lunation, and that's very welcome. So she's making it a little bit easier, all these tensions. So Venus is sextiling also Uranus in Taurus, which is at the Algol degree. And Algol degree is a little difficult in astrology, right? It's about potential for abuse, murder, but also release and a huge metamorphosis of energy, like a huge alchemization, and therefore a big change. And that's what Uranus also brings to the game. However, Uranus is also about sudden, surprising situations, potential destructiveness as well. So Venus is, of course, also conjunct Saturn, not just Neptune. And, even the North Node, of course, and even Ceres, who has entered the game in Pisces. It's all about building or rebuilding a different world, truly different, where we have different values, different levels of importance. And because this is a strong water earth combination, this is a very solid foundation where we can build long-term goals, and that's going to really innovate and project us into a future that is solid, but hopefully also more spiritual and pleasureful and feeling good, where we can enrich our lives using both the Taurian as well as the Piscean energies, which is a great mix, where we can make the intangible, the unseen, the magic of Pisces into something we can hold in our hands and we can see with our eyes, and we can really engage with on a more physical level. We can sensualize more, we can relax more, we can enjoy and feel more grateful for what we do have. But, Uranus at an Algol degree point could be challenging in itself. This is a big, normally, definitely also a new moon in Taurus is a huge, building block of creational energy, of wanting to have more stability in our lives. But then this T-square with Mars and Pluto is clearly showing some instability, and that could really demand the question of, am I safe? Am I secure? And it's one of those moments where we're just reminded to really think about what's essential and important and follow that path. And, the other perspective of a T-square is also that not only is there a huge push for attention to the Taurian aspect of our lives, particularly 7 degrees, it's also a push to create, to demand us to look at this Taurian aspect and to make more of it. More pleasure, more enrichment, more calmness, even though it's going to be triggered by instability, right? That's the duality of life. But it's not just stability. It has to be true, authentic. And that's, I think, that also the sextile between, Uranus and then the whole stellium of North Node, Ceres, Saturn, Venus, and Neptune, approximately all in Pisces. So make sure you're able to enhance the quality of your life and see the difficulties or the instabilities as messages that show you where to go, what to do, where to move from here on. And the Taurus way is just to feel into it and to connect very deeply with your body, really being present in the body, embodiment, and let your body guide you. And so then the feeling good, pleasure element of Taurus makes more sense. And also being about the 5 senses, you really have to trust the input of what your body's receiving to navigate yourself into what truly matters for you. Truly matters plus enrichment. Okay? But meantime, a lot of pressure can be felt. And so now you know why. It's not easy, but it's best not to take those collective energies personal, but to see more like, well, what is it demanding from me? What is this telling me? And so if you approach the pressure from that aspect, that's when you become the winner. So have a lovely new moon in Taurus. May the enrichment be your reality. And tell me if you have any placements around 7 degrees of Taurus and what you're excited for, what this lunation might bring you. And let's see what the T-square can reflect in our current reality. All right, take care. Thank you for watching. Have a good one. Bye.